Hey guys, Saf here with another Raid Shadow Legends video, and today I am bringing you the second video in my Blessings Spotlight series. Today we're going to be talking about Crushing Rend. If you saw my previous video on my Seer, I got really lucky. I pulled a 6-star perfect Soul Seer from a Soul Stone, and I probably now have one of the world's strongest Seers in the game. I probably don't because it's probably a Kraken that's a bit stronger than me, but it is pretty juicy stuff. And Crushing Rend is the blessing I chose for her. And in this video, we're going to do a deep dive on the mechanics of Crushing Rend, how it works, the details behind it, and everything you need to know to make sure you maximize the value when choosing this blessing. So without further ado, let's have a look at what we have here. Crushing Rend is an epic rarity blessing. So that means that rare champions cannot wear this blessing, but epic and above can wear it. In the blessing here, we've got each round, a number of this champion's hits ignore a percentage of the target's defense. So immediately you think, great, this is really good for my damage dealers. Ignoring defense is one of the best ways to deal more damage, generally speaking. There's always a sort of a cap in terms of how many stats you can really have. Ignore defense is the way you get around and get more damage out. The percentage of the ignore defense depends on the level of the target. So that is quite good. The harder the content, the more I ignore, the better it gets, because generally the harder the content, the higher the defense numbers are and the higher the damage reduction. So the more I can ignore, the more damage I can deal, vice versa. And then we have a high awakening bonus. Whenever you see these words high, low, medium awakening bonus, all you have to do is translate them in your head to a specific star rating, and it will tell you that in the stats. So you can almost forget the concept of high awakening and just look at the ranks to see where you get it. When it talks about high awakening, it normally means 5 or 6 star. Every hit this champion inflicts will ignore a percentage of the target's defense. Now, another thing about blessings, which I did mention in the previous video, and I'll mention in probably in every spotlight, the stats are just as important, sometimes even more important than the blessing itself. These stats here for an epic champion who cannot get access to empowerment will give you empowerment level bonuses. May not be the 40%, but it will be somewhere between the 2 to 3 plus rating of empowerment in terms of raw stats you get. And that is actually an underrated value in all of these blessing systems. If I can get an extra 400 attack on any 2-star damage dealing champion who's attack based, Constantine, Renegade, Cold Hearts if you're doing it for damage for secret rooms, your starter champions, any champion, basically getting that extra attack is quite a lot of damage. It's well worth the investment even at 2-star. But for Crushing Rend, we're ignoring defense, so what we want to see is really damage. We get attack, not great for defense based. We get HP as a flat 1000, that's nothing really to shout home about. We get 20% crit damage, and then we get 7 speed. Now, obviously, this is scalable to the rarity. So if I was to put this on a legendary champion, say like I put it on my Constantine, I would get instead 500 attack, 1000 HP is fixed across all rarities, and 25% crit damage and 10 speed. So you get a bit more for the legendaries, which is a bit disappointing, but it makes sense. The legendaries get more benefit. So these are great stats here. Speed is always helpful to have. 20 to 25% crit damage is insane to add into your build. It's basically a free tier 6 mastery. Flawless execution there for my Seer. 20% more crit damage. And the 400 attack is also very good. I have it on, for example, my Constantine. I have Soul Reap. He's getting an extra 500 attack. That is equivalent to a whole ring with double percentage. If I was to swap this out, I'd lose 478. And that has 7%, so it's even worse than that. So it's like 5. So that ring is giving me 577. So the blessing on a 2-star is effectively a full upgraded tier 6 ring with a substat. So let's talk about the biggest problem with Crushing Rend. If you do not kill your target in the first hit and you are not 6-star awakened, Crushing Rend is next to useless. It is almost not desirable to have at all. So that's the biggest thing I want you to take away from this spotlight. It's very, very, very powerful at 6 out of 6 and almost worthless at any other rank unless you know you're going to one-hit wonder. And why is that? It's this first hit mechanic that is kind of rubbish. There's 2 things that upgrade on the ranks where you don't get stats. So obviously at 2-star and 4-star, all you get is stats. 1, 3, 5, and 6 is where the effect improves. You get the first part is about whether or not every hit or just the first hit. So at 1 and 3-star, the first attack you do will ignore defense, and then it will never work again. The whole blessing becomes pointless. So for a Seer, this isn't really ever a problem because generally with Seer, she's there to kill the waves in one shot, so you're always going to get a benefit out of it. The only other problem as well with this is the second effect increases how much ignore defense you do. For 1 star, we're ignoring 1% defense for every 50 levels. Now, at about stage 25, you're looking at a champion level and a boss level of about 350. So that means that rank 1, it's pretty easy math to do. 350 divided by 50, we're talking 7% ignore defense on the highest stage on the first hit you do. In arena, it's like it's about 1.2%. You would never pick this if you're 1 star for arena on an epic champion. You would be better off just going phantom touch and getting the on hit damage, because this is adding 0 value to you. The 2nd star is great for 100 attack, 500 attack. That's perfect if you're attack based. If you're defense based, you still might pick this because the ignore defense paired with crit damage is good enough, and there's not really that many good damage-based defense sets here. There is, in fact, there's not, I think, off the top of my head, a blessing that gives you defense and crit damage in a damage-based blessing. At 3 star, we still have this same problem of the first hit, but hey, at least we're going to be ignoring on every 40 levels instead of 50 levels. Again, 350 divided by 40, we're now at 8.75%. So the 1 to 3 is giving you about 1.75%. That increase is actually quite small. Hitting 4 star and getting 20% more crit damage on your Seer, pretty powerful. That's a big stat boost. That's probably bigger than the increase from 2 to 3 and 1 to 3. That 1-4, because the stat alone will give you more damage than the other effects. 5 and 6 is where this all starts getting interesting. At 5, the first 2 hits in each round will ignore a target's defense. So if you don't kill him in one go, the next time you will. And then at 6 is where it gets extremely powerful, because every time you attack, you activate this blessing. So it's almost as if you're not 6 out of 6, you don't use this blessing, unless it's Seer. Seer is the only one that gets probably more value than anyone else, because generally her only purpose and her only ability is to one-shot the wave, where other champions can't really do it at higher awakening. And the other thing to keep in mind, if you're in the early game or mid game, then obviously you're not fighting high level opponents, so you're not ignoring that much defense. So again, you're probably better off just picking something like Phantom Touch, because that scales off your attack value. So if you have a high attack value, you're just going to do more damage than what this is going to give you as a comparison. At 5 star, we've got a 1% defense for every 25. Again, what I was saying about, say, sort of 350 level. At now 5 out of 5, we're ignoring around about 14% defense. So we've gone from 7 to 8.75 to 14. So we've doubled 1 to 5. And this is where it gets insane, because at 6, you go to 35%. So to go from 1 to 5, it's double. To go from 5 to 6, it's more than double. So there's really an insane value at 6 out of 6 on this blessing, more than any other blessings, I would say. This blessing is more important that you hit 6-star awakening to use this blessing over anything else. So let's talk about some of the mechanics here. There is nothing hidden behind the scenes about this. It's pretty straightforward. It's based on the target. If you hit that target, it ignores defense. If you're not 6 out of 6, it won't do it ever again. Simple as that. There's no hidden mechanics like with Phantom Touch about ignore defense. That's how the code works. So your question is, where do you use this blessing, and is it better than other blessings? There is basically almost like a competition between 3 blessings in terms of boss content more than anything else, in terms of which one does more damage. So we have the one that I covered in the first blessing spotlight, Phantom Touch. This one will do bonus damage based on a single target, and it can proc twice. We've got the Crushing Rend, which we're talking about here. This will ignore defense. And then the final one we've got is Hero Soul, which at 6 out of 6 will increase your damage by 3%. So I've done a math comparison on an Excel sheet we're going to look at to basically look at these 3 in comparison. Because what we're basically deciding here is these blessings are damage dealing blessings. They increase the amount of damage we deal. When is it better to pick Phantom Touch versus Crushing Rend versus Hero's Soul? I've got the sort of numbers here for a clan boss scenario, Ultra Nightmare. The clan boss's level is 250. That's important. We need to understand this because the level is how we determine how much Crushing Rend will ignore defense. We know it has a starting defense of 1,520. That gives it a base damage reduction of 54%. We're going to apply a decreased defense debuff to that target. Pretty much every clan boss team will have a decreased defense. It's the access to the highest amount of damage. That will drop his damage reduction to 28%, giving us a 26% damage increase across the board. And then we're going to assume that you've got a fully stacked out 6 out of 6 cruelty champion in there and a seeker or something. So he's going to take another 20% of the target's defense away because it reduces 20% of the boss's defense. And that one blessing there is going to give us an extra 5% ignore defense. So now we have some options here. Down here, I've basically pulled out a comparison for my Alika, which is my primary damage dealer in my clan boss. Her A1 generally hits around about 250,000 per hit. It can hit 2 hits, so it could be a 500,000, 450,000, whichever way you do the maths here, every turn. So we can compare the damage and hit of 250,000 versus her attack value, which is 6,600 with Phantom Touch. And then we can have a look to see which one is going to do the best. So with Crushing Rend here, we're expecting to ignore a further 25% ignore defense effectively. So that puts him on around about 18% ignore defense here, and that is a 5% damage increase. So therefore, we would expect to increase the damage of that A1 by about 5%. That returns essentially 12,974 more damage. That's how much we should be able to expect from Crushing Rend. Now with Phantom Touch also ignores defense. We know this from the previous blessing video. If you haven't checked it out, go watch that. This will ignore 30% of the defense, and it will be based off my attack value. So I have more control over it here. Essentially, if I put more attack into my champion, I can get a stronger Phantom Touch. There's also a chance at 6 out of 6 that you can do it twice. That needs to be factored in as well. It's not all the time, but it's a fair chance at 35% to get a second hit. So what we can do here as well is for Hero Soul, we know it increases my damage by 3%. So around 250,000 hit, I can just multiply that by 0.03 to get how much 3% more of that would be. So when we can see the rank here, Crushing Rend is going to increase it by about 13,000. My Phantom Touch proc is going to be 51,000. And Hero Soul is going to be around about 7,500. So it's pretty much in a sort of 1, 2, 3, Phantom Touch, Crushing Rend, Hero Soul. But remember, Crushing Rend has to be at 6 out of 6 in a clan boss scenario or any non-one-hit wonder scenario, because otherwise it just doesn't work. So that is a big factor. Phantom Touch will always work, just at a lower frequency. It's about 20% on rank 1, 40% on rank 3. 70% on rank 5, I think it works out at. But it just means that the damage is still the same. It just doesn't happen as often. So at least you can get value out of it. Same as Hero Soul. You'll always get the bonuses. It just won't be as potent. It's always going to be, by the looks of it, Crushing Rend versus Phantom Touch. Let's just look at how much extra increase we're getting. You know, what's the difference here effectively? So it's about a 38,000 increase. We can then sort of divide that with the base, and we can sort of see how much stronger it is. Put that to a percentage. So we can see it, Phantom Touch is around about 295% more damage. The way this changes really is when you're moving into higher end content, higher defense numbers, higher champion levels. So let's put this at 310. And I think the numbers I got up here is one of the Hydra head rotations. I think it's like one of the Torment heads or something. So we can put that number here. Now that we've done this, firstly, Phantom Touch obviously will go down in effectiveness because we've got a bigger damage reduction target. We've also got higher levels, which improves the quality of the Crushing Rend. We're now ignoring 31% of the defense, not 25. And we're also starting at a much higher defense, which means that we are going to get more value from things like Cruelty, things like Crushing Rend, where we did a lower defense of 1,520. So we can see if I was still hitting 250,000, obviously, that's not to say that I would, but an enemy max HP capping on some of these bosses around about 240,000, then I will gain around about 28,666 damage versus a Phantom Touch hit would be about a 29,937. So that is pretty much break even. The other thing to note here is Phantom Touch can only proc on a singular target. So if it's a one boss encounter, you don't care. It's a good comparison. In Hydra, you got 4 targets. Crushing Rend will work on all 4. Phantom Touch will only work on 1. So you end up in this situation now where you go, okay, in this scenario, where the target has got a level of above 300, where the defense numbers are much higher, we're talking end game content here. Crushing Rend at 6 out of 6 now becomes more desirable for your enemy max HP damage dealers or your bigger damage dealers within Hydra that aren't doing it via debuffs, but actually on hit damage. Crushing Rend would be the way you go, because it's designed for killing high-end content. Low-end content, you're probably going to go to Phantom Touch because effectively it's easier to scale more damage on 5 times attack of your champion than to do it on low defense, low-level targets. You know, if we look at something like, let's just take Dragon's Lair at stage 16. That would be what I would call like a mid-game entry point. We're talking the level at stage 16 is 200. The defenses are around about 2,599. So you can see here that we are back into the clan boss scenario of Cruelty will give you around about 5 to 6%. Crushing Rend is going to give you about 6% as well because it's reducing the damage reduction by 6%. Phantom Touch is going to give you 9% more damage because it's ignoring more defense. Crushing Rend here is only doing 20%. Phantom Touch does 30%. Then you do it off your own attack, you're at 214%. So that's kind of where we're at. Hero Soul is exclusively, I think, in my opinion, for Iragoth, for Agreth. So we're talking the Eternal Dragon, the Nether Spider, and probably for Spider Dungeon if you're doing a enemy max HP. That's like Spider 20 or lower. That's where Hero Soul is really valuable. On single target bosses, it's either Crushing Rend or Phantom Touch here. So you've seen me show this off in the spotlight for the Seer. I'm going to show it off here as well so you can see how you know that Crushing Rend is working. All of these blessings will have text show up when they do an attack. We're going to run through this cycle here. She's going to do that. Crushing Rend, you see it procs up there. The other thing to note about Crushing Rend, it is like artifact sets. War Master will increase because of this ignore defense, because War Master is based on enemy max HP percentage and then it gets reduced by the target's damage reduction. If you would decrease the target's defense, you increase your War Master damage. Therefore, it's actually extremely valuable to have on boss killing as well. It doesn't just result in the one-hit wonder here that Seer has. I will do around about 40% more damage on my War Master procs, which means I can kill the boss quicker. And often you will find in dungeons that bosses are the ones that take you a long time here. See, they're 96,000, almost 100,000 that's coming out of her per War Master proc. My Ruel here is in same set, sort of Savage, so he's getting the non-Crushing Rend ignore defense, and he's doing about 68,000. I've got Renegade here in Phantom Touch, so we'll be able to see she's, I think, 3,500 attack. Obviously, with an attack buff, that will double up. We might get a chance for her to actually do a Phantom Touch proc as well. She is a, I think, 4-star or 3-star. I cannot remember off the top of my head. No, just to do some damage there. Will we get a Phantom Touch? No, we will not. But there you go. So that's the other point to make as well. It will improve your War Master damage. That is a factor that you should have. But again, the moment you have it on a lower tier, so for example, if we were to find a champion here who is not... Have I got an awakened champion that I can test this on? See if we can awaken to a lower star. So I can show you what I really mean about how useless Crushing Rend is on a low target. We can put it on... Who have I got built off the top of my head? So what I'm going to do here is just test. What I want to see is if we do a double hit, does the Crushing Rend apply to both hits or just the first one? So is this effectively per skill or per hit? Now, I think it's per hit, which means it's not going to apply on the second one. So I'm just going to choose this for my Tyrell that we got a 3-star. Again, Soul Luck for me has been great. Shard Luck has been awful. We're going to throw him into an early stage of Doom Tower here, and we are just going to run some tests. So we put the Tyrell in here. We'll just boost up the speed so that we can make sure we get a turn. Obviously, Tyrell doesn't ignore any defense, so we will know if we see ignore defense. He hasn't got any ignore defense sets on. That is Crushing Rend working. So we're going to attack over here. 1, 2. The second attack did not ignore defense. So that's something to note. The other thing I want to quickly test as well in this content is if you AoE, does it count essentially for each target or does it count on the first target you hit? So we're going to replay this again. Tyrell has got an AoE, so we're going to test that out. So what we want to see is, does the numbers up here all say ignore defense or does it not? Yes. So it is per target. Each target can only be hit once. And then once it has been hit, it disables unless you are on 6 out of 6 awakened. And we can see the difference here because now whenever I do ignore defense, we're not going to get an attack. He'll probably survive. We'll just speed this up here. Hopefully he'll survive. Boost this to make sure he gets a turn. There we go. When I do a turn meter drop here, ignore defense no longer works. That blessing is effectively useless going forward, especially on someone like Tyrell because he's defense based and not 4 out of 4. So there you have it, guys. That is Crushing Rend in a deep dive. Let's just do a quick summary of what we have covered here. Bring up my Giga Charged World's Strongest Seer. Crushing Rend, very important that you run it at 6 out of 6 unless it's on someone you know that can one-shot a wave like Seer. It is dependent on the enemy target level that it gets incredibly powerful at 6 out of 6, but otherwise is around about half the value any other Ascendancy, and especially at Ascendancy 1 where it's virtually only 7%. Not very good for arena, I would argue. I think if you're using sort of a Gembo or a sort of a Magnar as a damage dealer, I think alternatively you can look at either a Phantom Touch, although it's not AoE, it'll only affect one target, but potentially could help you just pick off more damage. Or you look for stats. I think there's one here like Commanding Presence on your damage dealer. It's HP for Magnar, that would be quite good. Or you look for something like that stat just there, just so that you do more damage. You could just pick it for the sake of picking it, just to get a little bit more ignore defense, but at 1% for level 50, it's virtually pointless. The other things to note, it is per target, not per AoE. So if you have an AoE ability, each individual target will be able to take 1 hit on rank 5 or lower. Rank 5, you can take 2 hits. So it doesn't disable on the first target you hit and then everyone else. But then subsequent hits will not activate. This blessing becomes useless. The stats, though, are very good. It is exclusively designed for high-end content killing. Do not use this on Clan Boss. Phantom Touch is better for your damage dealer once you already have a Cruelty and a Brimstone and an Aura in your team. Phantom Touch is the way you go there, in my opinion. Do not use this if you are expecting to be doing multiple hits, because it will essentially become worthless. Phantom Touch is better even at 20%. Versus that, then Phantom Touch is just better than Crushing Rend there, because at least it will still happen even if it only happens at 20% of the time. Best place to use this, in my opinion, is stage 25 content on your Seer or on another wave clear. If you are doing like a Herndig style, then obviously he would gain benefit from it as well. And also on enemy max HP nukers who tend to be epic, such as Husk and Royal Guard. There is a very strong argument as well to have for legendary champions that potentially once you've got a Brimstone in your team, every team that has a legendary champion, they should have Brimstone first. The Soul Reap is actually a better option purely because it executes any target at 20% and it will do some pretty insane damage to the bosses in the game. Especially like Hydra, it will just kill the Hydra head off until that Hydra head dies. I'm actually going to be testing Soul Reap next with my Cantra. I've got Cantra at 5-star, which is great because I can actually do these soul blessings for you now properly. I was a bit worried about the legendary ones because I didn't have a high awakened one to fully test it out. But I'll be able to do spotlights on all of these legendary blessings, and they'll be very interesting math to see how good Brimstone is versus Soul Reap in places like Hydra. Soul Reap is probably one of the most powerful blessings in the game. So there you have it, guys. That is Crushing Rend. Let me know what you think about this. I personally think this is a bit of a bait blessing because I think it makes people think it's actually really powerful, but it actually requires 6 out of 6 unless you're running Seer. But even then, I still think the value is so heavily weighted in 6 that it's almost better to run something like Phantom Touch over it. The next blessing up that will probably be either Brimstone or it might be Soul Reap. It could also be that I do a bit of a spotlight on Hero Soul. I haven't quite decided the next one, but I will be doing a spotlight on every single one of these. It might take me a little bit of time over the next couple of weeks because my schedule is pretty jam-packed, but I will try and keep this content coming out to you as quickly as possible. If you are new to this channel and you have found this by actually asking the question, how good is Crushing Rend? Should I pick Crushing Rend for my champion? Please consider giving this channel a subscribe. It really helps us to keep growing the channel and also keep bringing awesome content that you might find useful other than this video. And if you are a regular viewer, thanks for coming back and watching, and I will catch you in the next video.